This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back with Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Happy Fat Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon, and finally, we've teased it. I've waited long enough. You know, it's really hard to do a podcast all by yourself, so I was like, okay, when's Jason going to come back? When is he going to make his way back to the Sterling Heights studios? And all I can say is, he's back. He's here with me.
My homeboy Jason up in here.
That's right, Jason Jarvi, the king.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I am the man. I am back. Back from,
Where the hell were you?
where was I? I was just kind of doing nothing. My wife had a baby, so we welcomed our first, yes, thank you, the one round of applause. Yeah, we welcomed our first child into the world, and it was an ordeal at the hospital. We were there for probably an entire week, almost 8 days actually. But the baby's home. He's healthy. He's eating. He's past his birth weight, so he's all good to go. And he's great. It's fatherhood is definitely an experience, and it's still somewhat surreal. That was my biggest thing when he was born. It was just that, like, man, there's this living thing that's like half of me, and that's just so crazy. And but he's a great kid. The wife's good, and just kind of been taking it easy and easing into parenthood.
So what were his numbers?
His numbers, he clocked in at 8 pounds, which was pretty normal. 21 inches, which is in the 95th percentile. He did have a little bit of problem breathing, and he had a 4.540. So he's gonna be good come NFL Combine time.
Linebacker?
That's actually, when he came out, one of the nurses actually mentioned, like, yeah, he's got some good size. He kind of looks like a linebacker. I don't know. The Lions could use a linebacker too.
And the best part is when new parents, bring their kids home, they start taking all the pictures, and they go, you know what? Your wife was hilarious on her Facebook page. She was like, I don't care. I'm going to be that mom. I'm going to take all the pictures and highlight the beauty that is my son. And good for her.
I know. And that's, leading up to the whole process of getting pregnant. And because it was a process of trying and trying again. And we didn't want to be those people to shove it in the face during the whole pregnancy period. But he's here. He's the cutest kid in the world, and
I like the fact you made him royalty by calling him sir.
He is. Well, it's funny too because I didn't actually do that. It was one of my wife's friends. Just in their group text, they called him Sir Jacob Edwin, and I was like, it kind of fits. He kind of sounds like a British kid and like British royalty, and it also works with my handles being Jarvi the King. So he's the prince.
Awesome, dude. No, you guys are going to make great parents. Another Sparty supporter in the house, and all congrats to you and the family, the missus, if she gets a chance to listen. Everybody here at the network was excited to hear that you had your kid. And so, wait, were you saying that potentially you had a problem with your seed before you had the baby? You couldn't handle the business side of the transaction?
Let's not talk about that. It's a process. It's a two-way street here, John.
Okay, so
jerk. We haven't even been on the podcast for 5 minutes, and you're giving me shit.
I just wanted to make sure that did you have any secondary testing? Did you have to make sure that you
did not? We just kept trying, because it finally happened.
Just off my initial assessment, I could say potentially they're probably slow swimmers up in there.
I'm sorry. Are you an actual doctor, or are you just a psychologist?
I just play one on the podcast. That's all. Good stuff. Did you miss doing the podcast?
I missed it, but it was also, there's just so much going on. And that's really what I found, is that as much as I wanted to really keep up on sports and wanted to continue to try and do some of the stuff that I would normally do, it's just, there's so much. And, everyone said that you're not going to get sleep, once the baby comes in. That's not true. We get sleep. We just don't get any, uninterrupted. It's all interrupted sleep. We get 2 hours here, we get 3 hours here. Everyone says, just sleep whenever the baby sleeps during the day, which that's impossible too, because if the baby's once the baby's sleeping, you gotta then wash bottles. You gotta do everything else that you've put on hold because you're holding and taking care of a baby. So I've been monitoring sports, but it hasn't been everything in my life, which I'm kind of bummed, because I'm a big fan of the NFL, the draft combine, and I know it's coming up. And normally I would have a pretty good grasp of who I really want. And really, I just have right now in my heart who I would want the Lions to take.
Okay, and we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later in the podcast regarding the combine and your thoughts about the Lions. But in the world of Detroit sports, it's an interesting time, Jason, in that it's kind of a transitional time. You saw kind of over the weekend the jersey retirement ceremony of Richard Hamilton.
Lame.
An opportunity for the Pistons to kind of reflect back on the past to a time when they had some success. But right now, in terms of the Pistons, they're in a situation where they probably need to transition to a couple new players because some of the decisions that were made by Stan Van haven't worked out. And so the Pistons probably need an overhaul in terms of the chemistry on that team. So that's where they're at. They're kind of scuffling around the 6 to 8 seed, trying their best to make sense of whatever kind of roster they have and trying to win as many games as possible. But it just kind of looks like another season where maybe they get in and they get trounced. And then you got the similar situation to the Red Wings, but from what I'm looking at, it looks like already the decision has been made based upon the play. And it's unfortunate, but I think as time has progressed, I think the intensity in terms of how my feeling towards it has gone down, in that I've reconciled it, I'm aware of it, I know it. I haven't been as passionate about the Red Wings this year. Ever since, General Manager Kenny Holland came out and said, really, the expectations are lower. We don't think we're a Stanley Cup winning team at all. You watch now and you go, you know what? This is not a team that is anywhere near where they need to. And the beginning of the deconstruction has happened, and that's where they're at. We're at the point now where on this Tuesday, we're all going to sit back and wait and see who's in the lineup in the first game back from the 5-day break. We're going to see who's going to be shipped off. And the pressure is on Kenny Holland because the rumors are swirling. You see the other trades that have been made. You see what other clubs are getting, and they're getting stuff for their players. And many people are starting to vocalize loudly that if Vanek is on this roster on Thursday, that Kenny Holland needs to lose his job, that he has to make the moves and start the process of selling. We're right on the verge of it.
Totally. And, to touch on the Pistons slightly, when the NBA trade deadline came and went, I think we all expected somebody to be moved, whether it's one of the big three with Drummond, Reggie Jackson, or KCP, and nothing happened. But I think with that group of players, they're not as far away as the Detroit Red Wings are. There's still a chance that they could make a run. They are currently in the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference, which it's not going to get them much. It's going to get them a first-round sacrificial lamb to the Cleveland Cavaliers. But the Red Wings, it's time. And I think we all knew it was time, and it's just trying to figure out if the organization realizes that it's finally time to blow up this thing, which it needed to happen last offseason. And, there are some signs that it's starting to happen. They traded Thomas Yurko, and they waived Alexei Marchenko, but is Ken Holland going to make those trades? And that's, I don't know. And if he does, who's on the table, or is anybody, touchable?
The part that is really upsetting, Jason, and I go back and forth because did you hear what the Pistons were trying to get back for Reggie Jackson? A first-round pick and an everyday starter, and I just thought the value was way too high for him in terms of, and nobody was going to give up that kind of haul for Reggie Jackson.
I'll at least commend them though for saying that. If Stan Van Gundy or Jeff Bauer could have convinced one of those teams to give up one of their great players, like I would have totally dealt Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson to the
Kings?
Portland Trailblazers for Dame Lillard. And I think that would have completely changed the landscape of this team, because I think Lillard is a perennial all-star. He is an up-and-comer. He's still young, and you know that they're going to build around him, where the Pistons right now with Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond, they don't really know where their identity is.
See, that's the tough part, and that's the toughest part of a job for a general manager, is trying to find value for your players. And I know the argument is you don't want to just give away players. The argument is you want value for your guys, but I'm very curious as to what they're placing the value of the Red Wings players. What's the value for Vanek? What's the value for Ott? What are some of the values that they're trying to get? And when they call up these general managers, what is Kenny Holland asking for the likes of a Tatar and a Nyquist? Because I know that people will say you can't just make change for change's sake.
Oh, so you say Thomas Tatar, he's on the trading block, right?
I think he's on the trading block.
Who said, like, I looked at my time hop, and the anniversary of me and Vinny going on the Doc and Jock show for the first time just passed, and
I'm gonna have to pull it up and play it in the next podcast or so.
I think I was getting a ton of shit for saying trade Thomas Tatar
at the time, because he was productive. At the time, you might have not. At the time last year, you might not have been in the postseason had you made that move, but you probably would have got more for him. So you were right, and you've already stamped it. You were right. I apologize for laughing at you at the time, and you were right. They needed to actually 2 or 3 seasons ago start the process of deconstructing this team. They might have been further along. But, the argument that you can't make change for change's sake, I would say that getting Reggie Jackson off the Pistons and getting anybody that can handle the point guard position, if you want to, split time with Ish Smith, obviously when Reggie Jackson's on the floor, he's a minus player. And the stats are overwhelming when you look at it. When he's on the floor, the other team outscores us by a large margin. When Ish Smith comes in the game, I know that he's not a prolific scorer. I know that he's not the prototypical everyday starting point guard. But when he's on the floor, the Pistons are a plus team. And it's just the way it is. And that shot that Reggie Jackson took in the Boston game is indicative of the situation and the struggles that the Pistons have, is that he likes to play hero ball, as Adam likes to say, and everybody else, is that he likes the ball in his hand. He likes to shoot. He likes things to go his way, and he needs volume. He needs to shoot the ball quite a ton to get his numbers. But I just think that change for the sake of change with Reggie Jackson would have been just fine just by removing him from the Pistons organization. The Red Wings are a little bit different spot. We can admit that Kenny Holland's job is to move these pieces and to get stuff back. But the likely scenario is I think they're going to have to get draft picks, because I don't think that in terms of the value that you think they may earn, that you're going to get enough for a Vanek, because everybody knows the Red Wings are sellers. So they're going to try to lowball you. His job is to go out there and construct a new team and find better ways of signing these free agents, because you can't give 6 years to Nielsen. You can't continue to sign the likes of Helm, Abdelkader, role players that don't get 20 points a year. You realize there are young players that have more points than your stars here on the Red Wings. It's a disgrace.
We're a complete team of role players. You have
a complete team of role players.
You have a handful of some raw talent. I think you got Athanasiou, Mantha, Dylan Larkin is still raw talent. I think those 3 main guys, that's the raw talent you have, and none of those guys are really superstars yet. The rest of them, Nyquist, Tatar, they're all just role players. And Zetterberg, as good as he's been over his career, and as good of a season that he's had, and I will go back and say that I did not believe that Zetterberg had this season in him. His time is coming. Whether it's by the end of this year, whether it's next year, it's gonna come. So they need to get assets. Whether it's looking at just get something, man.
Right now, in terms of what you read in the papers, Vanek and Smith are the 2 players most likely not to be here, because Vanek, the season that he's had, has really helped the Red Wings in terms of also getting them points, in terms of helping the power play unit. He's been a guy that's been a spark. But at the same time, when you have a player like that, now he's an asset. And on a team like this, in terms of the fact they're very low, in terms of their spot in the Eastern Conference, they're not anywhere near a playoff spot. They have to jump over way too many teams. He's a guy that can get you something. And if you like him, if you love the guy, and he can maybe do some things, you have a chance to bring him back next year, and with the addition of the players that you get for trading him. So the negotiations are hot and heavy. As we're talking, the phone lines are probably ringing. Kenny Holland's trying to make these offers, and we'll see, when the Red Wings take on the Vancouver Canucks, we'll see what's going to happen, who's going to be on the ice, and maybe a deal will have been made.
So what type of player do you expect back for a Vanek and a Brendan Smith? Because, I mean, you can't immediately ask a team to give you, a top 4 defenseman or a top 6 forward, because you're essentially just trading pieces. I think what you're probably going to have to see, you're going to have to see a slumping player, maybe somebody who used to be a top 6 forward who's not really doing as well this year. And it's not going to make sense at first, but you hope that you can get some young talent who has potential to put the puck in the net.
That or draft picks. I would say that if you can get anywhere from a second or third round pick along with a player that could be a developing player that can go down to the minors and get some seasoning, I would take that.
And we need to get multiple draft picks though. We need to get, and I'm talking first and second round picks. And I would even spread it out between years, because I'm not sure of the talent level coming into this draft. And you're probably you want to set yourself up for success in the future.
According to Detroit News, Vanek could fetch the Red Wings at least a second round pick and maybe a prospect or mid-round draft pick. And it's a situation where he's come to terms with it. He knows there's going to be a little bit of an upheaval, that he's going to have to play and live in a hotel while his kids stay back in the Metro Detroit area, finish out the school year. So you feel bad for these guys, but you realize that a guy like Vanek, he's playing for a contract. That's the tough part, is that he's up and down. Even Adam said when he was signed here, he was like, I don't even know if I want Vanek on this team because of what he's done. He's disappeared for a couple seasons.
Yeah.
Now that he's trying to play for that contract, he showed up.
I wanted Thomas Vanek years ago, but
right.
He finally shows up and starts doing good. Unfortunately, we're in a position where we're sellers. We're not the cup contender that we were, 8 years ago.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you look at the Red Wings, you just need the process of starting over and getting players that are going to put the puck in the net, are going to be strong on the power play unit, and strong defensively. I think the first step that I believe you need to address is the defense. It's not good at all. You realize that Mrazek and Careau and Howard have done an okay job, not what we need and what we're expected to, what we're expecting around here in Detroit, but enough to help this team win. And what happens is you see it all the time. The other team is able to get the puck in the zone freely. They're able to do some things on the power play. They get their shots on net, and the Red Wings just have a hard time. There's too many defensive breakdowns when you watch a Red Wings game, and you see situations where there's 3-on-2 rushes, odd man rushes galore. They have a hard time clearing the zone, and they have a hard time getting the opponents away from their goaltenders. So you see a lot of goals where, boom, Mrazek makes the initial save, boom, the guy's right there to pepper him, and he's burying the puck in the net. A lot of goals from the opponents are of that variety, and it's because of the fact that your defense is not stout. It's not a defense where you want the ideal version of Cronwell, not this version. You want basically the team that you have, but basically with the skill level up maybe 20%. You need 20% better skill players.
It's crazy, watching other teams. We turned on randomly the Bruins Stars game the other day, and just watching.
You were impressed by Minnesota, weren't you?
No, the Dallas Stars.
Oh, okay, sorry,
not the North Stars.
Oh man, yeah, all timer, right?
It's just watching these teams play. They're at a completely different level from the Red Wings. It boggles my mind how different teams are. And I think I wouldn't be upset if Holland went out and just strictly tried to fix the defense.
The team that caught my eye is the Minnesota Wild. When the Wings played them, I was like, oh my goodness, the speed, the athletic ability that they had, the young talent that they had, the ability to skate freely through the zone, the passes that they were making. I was looking at that game going, oh my goodness, this is a team that we kind of miss here around town, because the Red Wings play a style that, what are the Red Wings? They're a team that just kind of, do you think they're in transition from a team that likes to hold the puck?
I think the Red Wings are stuck playing the same way that they played
Europeans that hold the puck
when they were a good team.
Yeah,
but they don't have the talent to do that. They're still trying to bring the puck into the zone, and they can't do that. And then when they try and dump the puck into the zone, it's essentially just a turnover.
They get beat, right?
It makes absolutely no sense. They're stuck playing, and maybe it's Blashill, maybe it's just a combination of everything with the team just being stagnant.
And Jason, the stat that you'll look at that's probably the most indicative of the problems with the Red Wings is the special teams. they have the worst power play unit in special teams probably in the NHL. It's a situation where you get a power play. You've had opportunities like on a 5-on-3 where there's no shots. They're unable to consistently, perform on the power play. And that's an opportunity where you have the man advantage. You have the opportunity to do some things, and the inability, especially on the road, to put the puck in the net consistently is unbelievable. And many people will say that, hey, you got guys like Athanasiou who's scoring goals, on a 5-on-5 clip on the level of some superstars in this league, but you still are harping on the defense. You're still harping on the fact that, you have a philosophy, and some of these guys, because of their inexperience, are not living up to it. And many people are just like, you know what? Let them play 20 minutes. Let them make the mistakes. Let this team start to be led by Athanasiou, Mantha, and Larkin. And hell, if Larkin makes a mistake, so be it. That's how he's going to learn. I know that this is a big boy league, and Ken Cal even told us when he came, and he said, you have to play defense. You cannot be a one-way player in Jeff Blashill's system or in a lot of teams' system. But where the Red Wings are at, they just need to let these guys play through the mistakes and figure out what's going on with these guys. Because if Larkin, who has regressed this year, maybe isn't the guy you thought he was, you want to see it over a period of time. You don't want to wait another year and say, well, hey, he's only going to play 20, 25 minutes when you could up his ice time and really get him some experience. And that's what many people are looking at and saying, you know what? This was a lost season anyway. You should have taken a different stance altogether. Play the young guys because they got talent. And when you look at who's left the team, the Pulkkinens, the other individuals that go out there and you go, you know what? The guys that we have aren't performing anywhere. I mean, you got Sheahan, who was a high draft pick, and he's a guy that has no goals. A goalless season so far. And you go, ooh, you'd rather have him than a Pulkkinen maybe, and let's see what he can do if he was able to develop and get 20, 25 minutes. You've let go of some of these guys, and the confidence in Ken Holland is the biggest issue with the fans, is that I think many people now are wondering, should we even have Ken Holland deconstruct this team? Because the way he transitioned in the last 5 years and the signings that he's made, the years he's given, has not given anybody confidence that this is the guy. Many people are wondering, you know what? If this postseason streak ends, Kenny Holland should lose his job, is what people are thinking. And he should not be in charge of, evaluating the talent to bring back, because some of the signings he's made have been disastrous.
I mean, realistically, if we go into this trade deadline and we make zero moves, I really believe that we need an organizational change. We need Ken Holland gone. We need Jeff Blashill gone. I think we need, going all the way down to Grand Rapids. I think you need to get on the same page. You need to get a GM in here who's going to make splashes. He's going to go out there and put together the best team possible.
Do you blame Blashill? Because many people are looking at the likes of Tatar and Nyquist, and they go, these guys that other teams are coveting have regressed.
I don't put it all on Blashill. I think part of it might be him, but I think you couple, because he really is a mini Mike Babcock. He didn't really change up the system too much. And it's a product of the talent that he has, that he's having them play the same way, and they're just not getting the same production because they don't have a Nick Lidstrom back on the blue line to bail them out for 26 minutes a night.
Yeah, they don't have it, but many people are looking and they go, you know what? Another head coach probably could get a little bit more out of these guys, because you have so many players that have regressed. You have so many situations where, why is Larkin not taking a step forward? Why is Tatar and Nyquist not the same? They're not the same players that they were under Mike Babcock. What's the difference? What's the issue going on here? Why is it that every single time we talk about the power play and special teams, we're talking about the same things and nothing's happening? There's no consistency. So many people are also debating whether it's maybe, if you're going to keep Ken Holland, because how do you dump a guy who's got you to the postseason, who's had organizational success? How do you legitimately dump that guy when you go, in sports, you could make Jeff Blashill the scapegoat?
I just don't think that's the right move to make. I think if you do let go of Ken Holland, you let go of Jeff Blashill. I don't think it really wouldn't be fair to the GM, and it probably isn't fair to Jeff Blashill to kind of sit, and it would prolong the rebuilding process, because I think it just needs to be clean sweep. And I'm not saying that on the roster. I really think it's the organization. You've seen now Toronto, with Brendan Shanahan, and they brought in Mike Babcock. They are rebuilding the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have a good young core, and it did take a couple seasons of just being bad and having bad seasons. And we've seen that model everywhere. You saw that in Pittsburgh. They now have arguably two of the best players in the league, and Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby. I hate that guy. And the Chicago Blackhawks, they're doing it the right way. They got Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews, and just a whole host of other players, and they just seem to keep reloading. And the Red Wings just aren't doing any of that.
So what percentage chance do you think something will come down the pike today and some news will be made regarding a Wings transaction? What percentage chance do you give it?
I think of seeing any move, I think there's probably a 75% chance. But of seeing a move that makes sense, I put that at about 10%.
Ooh, 10%. So
I honestly, I don't believe Holland's going to make the right move.
So stay with us. Follow us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. All the news and notes, all the happenings in Detroit, we will definitely break down if they come down on this Fat Tuesday. We're going to take our first time out. Jason's excited about spring training and the Detroit Tigers.
It's crazy. I actually am excited for baseball.
I got to figure out why and rev this up again, because we had the debate all last season, up and down in terms of our excitement. But
spoiler alert, it's because the Pistons and the Red Wings suck.
There you go. Stay with us. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant, episode 96 on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc here for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thank you, everybody, for your continued support. I mean, when I looked at the numbers, Jerry hadn't done a podcast in a significant period of time because he had some things going on, but he released a new podcast and everybody came back. All his listeners and supporters, came out in droves, and a lot of people listened to his episode 51, and I greatly appreciate it. We're not able to keep the lights on, the microphone's hot here in the Sterling Heights studio without your continued support, and it means a lot to us. The best way to support us is go check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can go check out the schedule, find out when each show airs. You can find out about who in the hell is running this operation, and check out all the happenings around town. If you're a fan of Detroit sports, definitely check out the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I know we're doing great things here. Expanded coverage, more reporting, more content. Great things are happening, and the crew here absolutely loves it. Look, Jason had a kid. He didn't even take the full 6 weeks allotted. Came back here and trying to come up here and convince me to watch the Tigers, and that's why we love doing the podcast. Go visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com.
You don't want zero problems, big fella. Yup. If one more label try to stop me, it's gonna be some dreadhead niggas in the lobby.
Motor City Sports Rant, Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Jason, what is this?
This is Chance the Rapper. No problem. This one, I think it won a Grammy.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I think it was Best Rap Performance.
Oh, okay.
It was one of those. I forgive me if it's the wrong, but I know that it did win a Grammy. And I checked it out and I'm like, this song's good. It's got a good beat.
Okay, no doubt about it, Jason. I like the fact that you continue to bring the flavor to the podcast with your musical selections, bringing in all the knowledge from the bounce. Greatly appreciated, sir. So you're trying to tell me that once baseball started, once the hubbub kicked up and everyone's like, oh, the Tigers, let's win one for Mr. I. Let's go out there with the same squad that we had in 2016, in 2017. Let's go out there with the manager that doesn't make moves on a statistical basis that are shown to be successful. You're excited about this?
I'm excited because I think this might, where the Red Wings are, this might be the instance where we are finally at with the Tigers, where we have this season where we're going to have to make everything out of it, and maybe things fall the right way, and maybe we do just want to win one for Mr. Ilitch, and the Tigers could really make a good run. They're not a bad team. I know last year I told you, and I told you every single week that this team is going to be a roller coaster, and they're going to be probably 500 by the end of the year. And that's essentially what happened. And true, they didn't make a ton of moves, and more than likely this team is going to be a roller coaster again. All that I want to say is that, once again, it's a brand new season. Everyone is 0-0. Anything can happen. And if the Tigers can play like they played at the end of last season, if they can get the kind of production out of the pitchers, and I'm talking about Verlander, Fulmer, you have some repeat performances by Daniel Norris, if Matt Boyd can crack the lineup, and then hopefully who would be the fifth starter? Jordan Zimmerman. If he can stay healthy, I think if you have those 5 pitchers and they're all pretty much healthy for the entire season, that's a very good start. JD Martinez, going to be playing for a contract. You know that he's going to want to mash the ball. If Justin Upton can continue his success from late in the season last year, the possibilities are there. And that's why I am excited for baseball. And I'm really just excited because the Pistons have been awful. The Red Wings have been awful. The Lions broke our heart this year. And, Brad Ausmus isn't a horrible manager. He definitely, like Jim Caldwell, makes bad mistakes, but he has talent on that roster.
Well, the home fans are going to be able to see what this Tiger team brings, because do you know who they open the 4 games at home with when they start to come back? They play 3 games on the road versus the White Sox. You should be able to win that series, but they play 4 games at home to open the year on April 7th at Comerica Park. You know who they play? 4 games. You're going to get a chance to see where you stack up right away.
The Cleveland
Boston Red Sox.
Oh, okay.
And they, retooled and made some major moves in the offseason.
This is one of those series, though. I wouldn't be surprised if we open up the season like 5-2 or 6-1, because that would be classic Tigers. That they come out hot, that they beat the team that they're not supposed to, and then they come back down. They find their level. They get back to 500.
Man, I'm just going to go, wow, look what the Boston Red Sox have acquired. And it'll be interesting matchups to see how, the Boston pitchers stack up with the Detroit pitchers. But I would say at best, looking at it right now, you're just hoping for a split at any cost with the Red Sox, because it could get out of hand real quick.
Isn't that all you can ever really hope for with in any series?
You want to win the series.
No,
you want 2 out of 3 games.
You win the series that you're supposed to. You win the series with White Sox, either sweep or you drop one of those games. The Boston Red Sox is, you go in thinking split the series and you're good. That's really what you're going to do. If you can go, you can take 3 out of 4. Then that's gravy for you. But you go in, you want to at least split the series.
And see, here's why many people are not excited. You had a situation where now Chris Ilitch is coming out and saying, listen, I've given Alvio the mandate. There is no salary issue. There is no situation where we're trying to restrict payroll, all of that stuff. He has to say that. The reason why I don't buy into it is because he right now has to clean up the house. He's got to make sure everything's in order. The books are in order, because if he's going to try to get an evaluation on how much that team is worth, he's got to clean up everything and make sure that the PR is good. He's got to make sure that the books are good, so that if someone comes in with an offer at 1.3, 1.4 billion, you have to look at that offer. So to not think that maybe this organization might be in flux would be a little bit naive, in my opinion, because I think this team is probably going to be up for sale just to see what the number is. And if the Marlins go for a big number, then you got to look at, what Chris Ilitch's intentions are. And so that's step 1. Number 2, you basically have the same team coming back that you had in 2016 that fell short. And that team was a team that struck out a lot, that was trying to rely a lot on Pelfrey and Anibal Sanchez. They had a situation where the bullpen was a complete disaster. You had a situation where the manager made moves a lot of times that maybe cost you those 5 to 10 games that kept you out of the postseason. So there are too many things that we're all hoping change. 1, you're hoping that the starters are all healthy. And you hope that everybody, even the aged veterans, stay healthy. That's 1. 2, you're hoping that you come up with the 5 best pitchers and they're all going to perform. We're all hoping that Norris and Boyd maybe step up and take the 4 and 5 spot. We're all hoping that Fulmer doesn't have a slip up in year 2. We're all hoping. But Sanchez, who struggled in an outing earlier this week, you have Pelfrey still on the team. You have Lowe. You have a bunch of guys that you're hoping change what they did in the last year. And I just don't see it. Even if they improve 5%, I don't see that they're going to be effective enough to help this team. And then you look at the bullpen. You go, where are the moves? Nothing real serious. You just have to hope that everybody performs better in certain situations. But I would say within the first 10 games, there are going to be 2 blown leads from the bullpen. Within the first 10 games, we'll be sitting here going, look at this bullpen. They still struggle, and it cost you too many games. And many people are like, who's the savior? Is it Jimenez? Is he going to come up? Is he going to do some things? They still have question marks at center field. That's a big unknown. We're all hoping, and Adam asked me, he's like, who's going to be the center fielder? Is it going to be Matuk? Is it going to be,
Jacoby Jones,
Tyler Collins, any of these guys? Anthony Ghost might have a small chance to get up there. It's just one of those things where you look at it and you go, I'm not excited about it. I'm watching it. I'm actually more interested in following Justin Verlander's Twitter when he rips all the fans that answer his tweets. And in all honesty, I follow the social media of these guys. I follow the other stories. But in terms of the baseball, I just don't see any avenue of getting more than 86 wins. And then to compound it, right? To compound it, who's the competition? The team that just came off of a World Series appearance and were heartbroken, the Cleveland Indians. They made a monster move picking up Encarnacion. That batting lineup is amazing. That's a strong lineup. You look at their batting lineup, 1 through 9, the pitchers they got, Andrew Miller, the best reliever that probably can pitch 3 and 4 innings against you. You look at it and you go, my goodness, Cleveland is going to be a beast. So you're basically starting off the year, in my eyes, playing for the wild card.
Didn't they say the same thing about the Kansas City Royals after they won the World Series? That they just had this amazing roster and that they're a lock to win the AL Central again. The Cleveland Indians are not a lock to win this AL Central. This AL Central is wide open, aside from the Minnesota Twins. And you forgot to mention, they're the Cleveland Indians, John. That's the biggest argument I'm going to give you. They're the Cleveland Indians. They're going to mess up. They're going to backtrack. They're going to go Indians at some point.
So right now, to start the year as we're talking, you don't have them atop of the Central right now?
Right now, yes. They're atop the AL Central. But I think at some point in the early to mid part of the season, they're going to slip. And you saw towards the end of last season, they did slide. Now, postseason baseball is an entirely different monster. And the way Terry Francona managed that team is probably the perfect way to manage a team. But he's not going to manage it the same way he did in the postseason that he does in the regular season, because Andrew Miller can't save every single game for you. He's gonna have to take a night off here and there. So and who knows, is Andrew Miller actually gonna be able to repeat what he did? He's still just a reliever.
Man, see, I look at it and I go, the momentum is with other clubs. The momentum's with the likes of the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Toronto the Blue Jays.
I would love to see the Blue Jays. I wanted the Blue Jays to be there, but
I don't know what the loss of Encarnacion is going to do to them, but they picked up some pieces. And you look at the likes of the teams out west, even the Texas Rangers. What are they going to do? The Houston Astros. Do they take a step forward? And you look at it and you go, basically, the Tigers, I wouldn't say got too much better, but they didn't get too much worse. So basically, you're hoping that maybe Justin Upton can recreate what he did in the second half in the first half, and you hope that maybe Justin Verlander and Zimmerman continue to have some success that they experienced in 2016. But when you overall look at it, the way you look at it is it's the same old, same old. And as a sports fan, looking at it that way, you go, we all like new and shiny things. We like the perception of hope. But when your general manager maybe started off the year and said that, maybe we're going to stop and cap the number that we're going to spend, many people think that the investment is not there. So meaning that if there is a situation where, let's say, for example, they do get off to a good start and maybe they're 15 to 20 games over 500, and there's that young closer out there that's doing well, that's on a craptastic team, do they make the move, take on a contract? Do they add pieces? Because I think the biggest reason, outside of what I discussed earlier, is I don't have hope that if this team is on the cusp and maybe they're at the verge of, making the postseason or making a run, do I believe they're going to take on 1, 2, or 3 players to get them over the hump that might have big contracts? Would they be willing to do that? sitting here now as I'm talking to you, I don't have that confidence that they're going to add if they even get to that point.
I think last season I'd agree with you, but I think this season, because
you can see a scenario where they could be buyers.
I do.
You could?
If they're in the lead of the Central and they maybe need one more piece, maybe their bullpen is struggling, maybe they need one more bat, or maybe they need both. I think the Illich factor is as crazy as you want to call it. There are crazy things that go on in sports. The Lions have not won. They've only won one playoff game. And there's really no other reason besides just saying that they're the Lions for why that's happened. So I think that has to be a factor, that this team and this organization does want to try and win a championship in commemoration. This is the same organization that went out and won a Stanley Cup for Vladdy. They won the Stanley Cup, and then they did it the following year. Then they did it for him, man.
Okay, so Tony Paul just put out a tweet. Do you know what Vegas set the over-under at? I think it's a situation where it could be easy money if you get this bet in.
Is it 75-1?
No. The over-under in terms of their wins.
78.
More, 82.5. And he said I would even go over by a long shot. I think that's not a bad number, but I think that's an easy bet to take the Tigers at maybe getting 85 to 86 wins.
Yeah, and that's really where I would see them, 85, 86. And I think that really puts them in competition for a wild card position.
See, I don't see any scenario at all in which the Tigers are going to be buyers this season.
If they're in contention?
I don't know. I don't see a scenario where they add talent to this team in the later half of the year. So.
And you pointed it out that Chris Illich wants this team to be at its most valuable. Going out, if getting that one or two more pieces that's going to put your team over the top, wouldn't you say spend that extra money? Because if you're going to sell it, it's going to be somebody else's problem anyways, and you make your product better. I really think that that's a possibility, and I can also see the probability where they might be selling off pieces though.
Yeah,
if they go the complete opposite way, they really need to maximize their value for Kinsler, JD Martinez, get whatever you can, a bag of balls for Victor Martinez, because then they really do need to start from scratch.
So I don't see a scenario in which they buy, because it's just one of those things where you're not only competing with the team, you're not only just communicating with the team yourself. You're going to have other squads looking to make that move too, and I see maybe the Indians even adding more. The Red Sox have an open checkbook policy going on right now. You have the Yankees making better moves right now in terms of being a little bit more fiscally responsible. So they may, if they get off to a good start, they're always a chance to get in the mix. And you're always looking at certain teams that you're competing with the National League as well. They're always looking to make moves and try and do some things as well. But I think the philosophy that many people want is to say, let's build like the Cubs built. Let's build a minor league system. Let's make some moves, and let's actually sell and get some assets in here. Because what I see is the reason why my confidence is low is that I've already sold. In my mind, I've already sold. I sold a year ago. I sold 2 years ago. Every time I said sell, start this process. So I feel like they're already 2 years behind. And you're in a situation where in baseball, it's not just that easy to rebuild. It's going to take, and I hate to say the three words that nobody likes, but 5-year plan. That's where we're at with this team, and that's why I don't have confidence. We're on a 5-year plan, but they haven't started it yet. They haven't recognized it. As a psychologist, what do we say is the thing that keeps people behind? And it's not just a river in Egypt. It's denial. They're in denial. That's the biggest thing that the Tigers struggle with, and the Red Wings are, I think, over it now. They've hit that part, and they're over the denial. The Pistons are still in denial. The Lions are still in denial.
But do you think the Tigers organization will even come to that realization this year? Are they going to come to it, by the trade deadline, that they need to blow this up and get on the road to rebuilding? Or do you think they're just going to go through the rest of the season, let's see what happens, and then wait until the end of the year? Because if that's the case, if you really don't think the Tigers organization is going to start rebuilding mid-season, then why not have hope that they're going to actually try and make moves to go for one more run? Miggy said it. He came out and said he thinks that we can give it one more shot.
Well, See, that's what Miggy's supposed to say. So the players, of course, they say the same things. Oh my gosh, we like that we're together. We've all had a great offseason. We've all worked together. We're all workout warriors. This is a great clubhouse. We like playing for the manager. That's all the same nonsense that was said. I'm looking at it from the boss's perspective. The boss's job is to say, you know what? Great. We don't got it. Ship JV off, ship Miggy off, ship Victor Martinez off, ship Justin Upton off, because you got 5 or 6 players that could get you back 12 players and some draft picks. If you get 2 players for each guy, if you get at least 2 draft picks for each guy, now you got a situation where you start rebuilding this and you don't care. You say, listen, we're in a rebuild mode. This is what it is. We had a great decade. We were able to get to 2 World Series. Now we want to do some things that will guarantee us a chance in the next 5 years to get to a couple more. But this is not it. All we're doing is delaying the inevitable, kicking the can down the road, whatever metaphor you want to use. All we're doing, in my opinion, is just waiting another year to see what this team can do. I'm already saying I think at this point in time, I already know what they're going to do. 85 wins, close, maybe get to a wild card game. That might even be the ceiling this year. Get to a wild card game, maybe win it, get in, and get kicked around by the likes of a Cleveland or a Boston or a team out west. That's the ceiling.
I can't believe that though. If they're able to get into the wild card or get into the postseason, anything can happen at that point.
See, then from my thinking is you're not looking at it objectively. You're looking at it like a hopeful individual. And I get that. I love that. You have that hope. I
look at that factually. You look at what happened.
Look factually, this team could have success.
Look at what happened with the Indians last year. The Indians were sliding, and I thought they had... Did you even believe they had any chance against Boston last year?
Once they had Corey Kluber, and once you saw what Terry Francona was able to do, of course, that's why they got him. When you look at Cleveland, you would say likely they have a good squad and they're well managed. You could even say, outside of the talent of Cleveland, the simple fact that they got Terry Francona in this division wipes out the Tigers and wipes out everybody else because he's the class of the He's the class of the American League. He's one of the best 3 managers in all of baseball. You know, Tito Francona is an amazing manager, and he's got something that allows, he makes the moves at the right time, and he's done it with other organizations. So you got to look at it and go, when you look at Brad Ausmus compared to Tito, it's no comparison.
But I can't believe, though, I get it when you're talking about a 162-game season, that you can pretty much average where a team's going to be. But when you're talking about a 1-game wild card, or a 7-game series, anything can happen in those games.
Okay.
Somebody can get hot, somebody can get cold, and we saw it in the World Series. The Indians go up 3-1, and the Cubs come just roaring back. They win the World Series, the first in however many years. Anything can happen in the playoffs.
Anything can happen. That's what Jason's spewing out here. So I can respect that, and I hope as we progress in this podcast, we'll have some spirited debates. But as I see it, and my honest assessment looking at the Tigers is you're going to basically, I'm jumping ahead to October, and the storyline's going to be, who's the next Tigers manager going to be? That's the storyline, in my opinion, and I think that we're looking at an 85 to 86 win team and just short of the postseason. But there are some things, though, that I do find to be something I want to watch. I want to see, does Jimenez crack into this team looking like he's not going to start the year with the squad? How great and elite is Michael Fulmer going to be? Is he going to take that next step and be a superstar? How do they work around Sanchez and Pelfrey? How does this bullpen get utilized in different situations? Can the offense strike out less and mash? Is Miguel and Martinez are the Martinez brothers going to continue to mash? Victor and JD. And in the end, if it doesn't work out, who is the expendable piece? Because you have them. You have assets. And you got a plethora of them. 5 to 6 guys that if you sprinkled across Major League Baseball, around the time of the trade deadline, I think you could get some serious returns, and that could boost the rebuild process, which I think already should have happened.
Yeah, and I would say the biggest thing to watch early on in the season, it's going to be the rotation. Because everything, if you can have a rotation that gets you between 5 and 7 innings a night, you're not having to rely on your bullpen, then you're going to be in a good position to win games. But if JV has a setback, maybe he starts slow. If Fulmer has a setback, if Norris, Boyd, Zimmerman, if any of those guys really start slow, then I think this Tigers team is going to be behind the 8 ball, because then you're going to have to rely on your hitting, which that's essentially where we were last year, is that we were relying on basically out hitting everybody. And as you saw, it comes and it goes. We'll go a couple games in a row where we score 8-9 runs, and then out of the blue, we'll go 4 games where we score a combined 2 runs, which
complete team, complete games.
Having a complete rotation and a solid rotation is gonna fix a lot of holes, because if you have to start relying on bullpen, have to start relying on hitting, that's when the wheels will start coming off.
No doubt about it. Final topic, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because we didn't talk really about the Super Bowl or the NFL or things like that. But the Lions season ended in disastrous fashion, obviously, in terms of the way they lost in the postseason to Seattle. New England came back miraculously and ended the year on a high note, really coming back and making the Super Bowl an all-time classic. Whether you believe it was the greatest game of all time or not, it still was a game that we're all going to remember for a long time, not only for the first half, but the epic comeback of New England. And you start to look at, okay, the Detroit Lions, our team here, we're looking at what are they going to do to rebuild this team. And the biggest thing, obviously, that we're looking at is, are the talks in place going on with Stafford? Is he going to take up 15 to 16% of the cap? That's one big department, because if he takes up a huge number, then the rest is going to be slotted in. But I think a couple needs that I've targeted, obviously, are a complement to Ziggy Ansah, because you need a consistent pass rush. You need a consistent defensive line to do some things to limit the opponent's run, to limit the opponent's quarterback from doing some things, limit big plays. And then the second big target you got to look at on the defensive side is improving the linebacking core. No doubt about it, because to go a whole year from the linebacking core without really getting a sack or an interception or forcing anything serious in terms of, getting pressure on the quarterback or forcing turnovers is outlandish. And, it really did sting a little bit to see Kyle Van Noy win a ring. I'm looking like, yeah, I know he wouldn't have been the same guy here. He went to a whole new system. He got touched by the Belichick. So he was able to, rejuvenate his career, and he got a ring. So you look at it and you go, what does this team need? What are the key areas that this Detroit Lions team needs to get over the hump? And I would say, yeah, you could look at a big receiver. Yeah, you could look at the big running back. But I would say to get farther in terms of where you need to go, my thinking has always been and will always be old school. And it's always going to look at, the great teams like Seattle and Denver in the last couple of years. Focus on the defense. Is if you can win games in a situation where, you only can score 18, 19 points, but your defense only gives up 10, you're farther along. So my focus will be, who are the Lions going to target in the draft, and who are they going to target in free agency that's going to bolster that defense? Because Austin has something. Terrell Austin has something that you can work with in terms of his coaching ability, but I don't know if the talent right now in the defense is where it needs to be to get you where you got to go. The offense is okay. It's workable. You got coaches that are strong. You got offensive minds in Caldwell and Jim Bob Cooter. The defense, in my opinion, needs work.
And you hit the nail right on the head. And I'm not sure which is the bigger need right now, whether it be the edge rusher to complement Ansah or to start really almost rebuilding the entire linebacker core, because who knows what you're going to get out of Levy? Is he going to actually come back next season? How many games are we going to even get him? So I think you can argue for both. I would probably start, and probably the easiest place to really start to fix that defense is getting that edge rusher, because having Ziggy Ansah is huge. But we've seen when this team when we had Ndamukong Suh, when we had Nick Fairley, when we had just the beginning of Ansah, when we had constant pressure on the defense or on the quarterback, that made up for a lot of our deficiencies in our linebacker core and in our secondary. Now we're starting to get some semblance of a defensive secondary, but we have no pressure. So when Ziggy Ansah was out all those games, when I'm not sure if he was ever really right this entire season. So we needed a second edge rusher to be able to continue putting pressure on teams' offenses. So getting, whether it's through free agency or using your first round pick to go out and get a big time defensive end, then I think that is probably the way to start. And then I would probably trust Bob Quinn to go out and try and what he did with the secondary last year, going out, getting Tavon Wilson, getting Raphael Bush, drafting Miles Killebrew in the 4th round. He really kind of shored up that secondary. And I think that's what I want him to do this offseason, is maybe not going out and getting big name linebackers, but going and getting out guys who he knows can fit in the system and that just work and can plug holes when we have injuries. So I think it's very tempting to go out and make a big splash on the offense, because I'm even guilty of saying that, you put enough weapons around Matt Stafford, then he's going to be successful. But I don't think that's the right place to spend money. You're probably going to see some big name running backs, which I love running backs, and I want this team to actually have a running game. If Jamal Charles gets released by the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't want him anywhere near our team, because I think
that's the name, right?
He is a...
No, listen, all you got to say is one number, 30. You're not going to pick up running backs in their 30s.
30.
Yeah.
If any guy that I'd want to target, it might be Latavius Murray from the Raiders. I think he's still young, and I still think he has a little bit.
Adam targeted that. We talked about it on Doc and Jock a little bit. I say that's fine if you want to look to free agents. I would say, though, you can get that value in the draft.
Right. And I also think in the draft there's a ton of defensive ends in the draft that you can target too. So depending on who's there in the first round, I think you go with a couple of positions. I think, defensive end, linebacker, maybe safety, and those are the 3 positions you really want to target in that first round. The only running back, unless Fournette or Dalvin Cook somehow fall to you, I don't think there's any way you go anything else besides those 3 positions.
Now, the name is kind of getting sprinkled around in a lot of people's mock drafts. Round 1 for the Lions is Taco Charlton. What do you think about that? If it's a guy that is obviously somebody coming from Michigan, would have some hometown ties, but it seems like he's a talented defender and would add to the defensive line.
If he can live up to the hype that they're giving him, and if he can come in and produce, that's all that I really want. I don't care that he played for Michigan. If he's going to come in and give me 8 to 15 sacks a season as an edge rusher, I will take him every single day.
The Combine is later this week. I think that Adam's super excited. Calls it the Underwear Olympics. He's definitely down. I know we'll have good coverage because he definitely checks in. I know you'll watch it. I'll watch it. And now we'll start the process of evaluating. I know Jerry's going to start doing some mock drafts that you can find on DetroitSportsPodcast.com. And hell, if you're into that and you're looking at it and you got time, write up a mock draft. I'd love to put it out there. No problem.
Sure, why not?
Now, kind of a sad topic to kind of look at to end the podcast, but real briefly, maybe under 2 minutes or so. Have you been following the nonsense at Michigan State? It's bad. We haven't gone into too much detail here on the network other than kind of going with what everybody's talked about regarding the allegations. But all around, in terms of already a linebacker has left regarding negative, I guess, maybe comments he made to a teammate. That's a separate issue. The whole Dr. Nasser situation, separate issue. Now you have Michigan State and D'Antonio not talking to the media. The whole Curtis Blackwell situation, somebody that we kind of know here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. And then you have the allegations of alleged sexual assaults, possible, people not really wanting to discuss it or reveal to the necessary parties. So the scene at our beloved Michigan State is not real great. Have you been peeking in at all, or
I haven't dived too deep into it.
But that's what you know. You do know what I just told you. Along the lines of that kind of stuff. That's
I know.
It.
I've heard along the lines.
It's not good, right? It's not good.
It's not good. And I will say that if anything does come of that, shame on Michigan State. I will still love Michigan State and love being a prideful Spartan, but in no way can I support that. I would go with any punishment that the NCAA or they wanted to self-impose. I don't think they should. Any of these schools that's been going through this, they can't take any of this lightly. It's It's horrible.
So the way I'll put it is, let's not look at it. Let's broaden it out just for a second here regarding the whole, aura of athletics and things like that. Do you think that with cell phones, with the society that now we're in, with the big money nature of college sports and the ability to maybe realize that if you're a high, talented athlete, and that there are scenarios in which athletes that have potential, athletes that do stuff for the university, maybe the universities are still willing to protect athletes in order to, profit.
Really? I mean,
do you still believe that in this day and age, it's hard to wrap your mind around it, that a great athlete can still think or maybe want to skirt the rules by, having that? And are you basically the long way of putting it is, are universities still enabling great athletes?
Totally.
It's still going on, right?
It's all about money. And it's
unbelievable.
It's unfortunate because, I think it really it's the football and the basketball. You see it the most there. And in both of those sports, it really isn't, it's not student athletes. You're talking about kids who, if they didn't have to, they would have gone straight to the NBA or they would have gone straight to the NFL. They're there just to basically as a placeholder to get into there. And there's kids who are getting money. It's the biggest joke in the NCAA of, student athletes. And, I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, I think that's the first step in acknowledging and saying that, we still as a society enable, athletes because of our love of sports and our overemphasis on athletes.
I mean,
but
really,
it's really simple though. Follow the rules, follow the law.
The only way to take that away though is to just completely take sports out of college, to just have minor league sports all around. There's really no other way around it because, NCAA football is essentially it's a minor league for the NFL.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's still though we're still in the situations where you have to gather more facts. You have to look at what's the real story, and we still are in the alleged mode, and we're looking at what's going to come out soon. But it seems like more and more that the news is going to start ramping up in terms of who was it, what's going to be the reprimands, and what's going to happen, who knew what when. Still has to be looked at and evaluated, but it's not a good thing when you start hearing the coach of your football team that you follow say that we're not talking. It's just something where you go, eesh. It's more, I think, advantageous to be willing to kind of address what you know and be honest with your supporters, because this looks like you're lawyering up and trying to cover up.
Man, John, why'd you have to end this on a low note?
We had to.
We can't end this on a low note.
I had to.
I'm bringing it back. I'm rewinding. We're going back to the combine.
Okay.
The 40 times trying to be the fastest player. As Adidas has, they've
the challenge.
They've had the promotion. They've had, but in years past, it's been, if you can break Chris Johnson 4.24 40 record, they'll give you $1 million.
Yeah.
They upped the stakes this year. You know what they're offering?
$1 million for life?
No. Well, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But no, they're offering, if you can beat the 4.24 40, they will give you an island.
Yeah, the island. Yes. That's awesome. Isn't that crazy?
That's nuts.
It's nuts.
And those kids are going to go out. I would hope that they'd go out and just go balls to the wall, try to get the 4.23.
Okay.
Have their own island.
All right, we'll get out of here on this. Bob McKenzie on Twitter, and I posted it on our Twitter page. Detroit and the New York Rangers working to finalize trade for Brendan Smith. Not officially done yet, but hearing pair of picks, including second rounder, would be included. So it's maybe starting. The wheels are turning. The phone calls are happening. The Wings are about to be sellers, bro. It's now, the stamp is here. It's done. The Wings are basically going to wave the white flag, wave the red flag, per se, and it's
the
done.
Red and white flag.
They're waving the red and white flag, and the Wings are going to be sellers, and it's about time. That's all we can say. Great to have you back, man. Just turn on the microphones and have a conversation with you. It was really enjoyable. It's really a great way to start my day. If we could do it 5 days a week, 10 a.m., that would be awesome. A great way to start the day, bro. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. And hopefully I'll be back next week. We'll see. But he's John Macaroon. I'm Jason Jarvi. It's the Motor City Sports Rant. Peace.
My homeboy Jason up in here.
Okay, nice, idiot. F you. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.